I want to say if I can't win, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I like winning more than I like racing. Like the racing part's okay, but the winning part's the only reason why I do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go on the ball. What a race! California's Kevin Harvick does it. Straight making right there. You're the man.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour presented by NASCAR on Fox. We encourage our closers to subscribe on YouTube and listen anywhere else that you listen to your podcasts. And today we've got our most recent winner, Joey Logano, in the chair, and two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, 32 Cup Series race wins, just won the All-Star Race, and gosh, that's got to feel good.
I'm almost as happy as you now.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's a good change of pace. It's been a pretty rough start to the season. We've talked about it a couple times. So to have a run that was so dominant, fast car, good execution, I wish there was points involved.
Yeah.
I can tell you that much, but still a million reasons to smile.
Yeah, and I mean, from a confidence standpoint for your team and everybody that is involved in that, no matter if there's points or not, right? Like,
absolutely,
all the good guys are still in the field, and you still got to beat them.
Yeah, you still got to. I mean, it's still a cup win in my book, right? I know they don't count it in your all-time stats and all that, but gosh, you still had to beat everybody to do it. And the All-Star Race always has something a little bit special to it, too,
Yeah.
to be able to accomplish that one. So the momentum, the confidence that kind of builds up after kind of a dry spell, to be honest with you, like that radiance through the team, not just the 22 team, but all of Team Penske and Ford. And like it shows that there's some light at the end of the tunnel where we still can do it.
Right.
So it gives you a little bit extra pep in the step going into the 600 this weekend and really into the next few races where we think we could have some good runs.
What's that process been like? Because I think for when I listen to the things that you have said and talked about, it sounds like this North Wilkesboro test was a key ingredient for you guys when you went to Richmond. And now you see Brad and Chris and those guys starting to run good as well. But for you personally and your team, talk to me about that test at North Wilkesboro. Just what was the conversation like before that, and just saying, okay, we got it. This is our shot. We got to try some stuff.
Well, you get one test a year if you're lucky, right? Because I mean, all there is tire test now. There's not really open tests to speak of at all. And those tests get divvied up through the manufacturers and then to the race teams and then to the car numbers, right? And so, when it gets to Team Penske, we got to share it between 3 cars. And so that's our one. And we approached that test as if we were going racing that weekend. Like, this is our chance to actually finally get to work on our cars. Listen, we get 15 minutes of practice. All we got is heights, wedge, and sway bar arms and air pressure to do. And then even after the race, you know what you want to fix in your car, but you're going to go back there next year when everything else is different, and you're going to say, was it better than last year? How do you really know?
Right.
You went through this, you don't know. So the test is the only opportunity you have to actually work on your car, try things, get a direction for any racetrack, particularly short tracks for this one. And try to get some direction somehow. And the thing with tire tests that are tough too is you really only get a couple hours to tune on your car, and then they're going to start throwing tires at you. Goodyear, it's Goodyear's test, right? That we're invited to their test. They own the test. They're going to tell us what to do. They just, as a gift, give you a couple hours to make sure your car's driving decent before they start doing it. So you take those couple hours and cherish them because it is everything. So we did that, and then we just started firing tires at it and ran 50-lap runs one after another. And we were able to figure out some things along the way. And the good thing is we finally capitalized on that.
Yeah.
So did we have an advantage because of the tire test? Yes. Do other teams have advantages because they go to other tire tests? Absolutely, right? Everybody does, I guess, to do that, but it's equally spread out throughout the field over the course of a year.
When you did that tire test, did you have any indication that the groove would be on a racetrack like that?
Kevin, the line was on the bottom. If you came off the bottom, especially in 3 and 4, if you came off the bottom 3 feet, you'd wreck. And the 54 did at the test. Got up high, got into loose stuff, and hit the wall. So I had no indication that this was going to move up the racetrack. I thought it was going to be like every other repave that we go to, where it's one groove, and if you get on the outside, you're going to get freight trained.
Right.
And the race was the complete opposite. The top lane was the preferred lane.
Yeah.
That's where the speed was. And even, of all the tires we tried there in all the long runs, we never tried the option tire, right? The red tire. And we ran the whole race on the red tire. We didn't even run the tire that we did all the testing
And
on.
it didn't look like it was going to be that way in practice. I was fortunate to drive.
Right.
And when I drove the primary tire and then you drove the red, like there was definitely some speed difference for that 12 to 15 laps. And then it kind of fell off and then it plateaued. But it seemed like the primary tire was going to settle in to be the long run tire. I don't know about how you felt in practice, but that's how it felt to me.
You would have thought. I thought the same thing. We ran 60 plus laps on the soft tire, the red tire, in practice. And same thing, like the first 10 laps, like, quite a bit of fall off here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just plateaued and ran 90s.
Right.
In the race, cooler out. Maybe that had something to do with it too. We ran 60s the whole race. Part of the track's moving up a little bit. Maybe you can move around. It's not as slick out there. But the regular tire, the prime, just wasn't as fast on the front side, and it was equal on the long run. Never better.
Right.
So, and if you ever cooled off the option tire, it still fired off faster, even being old, than the other tires. So,
did you like it? Not like it? What do you think of where we landed on the Goodyear tire experiment?
I mean, I think I like that we tried something there. I think it's not a fair shake, because when have you ever had tire fall off at a repave? Even with the old car when we had 900 horsepower,
It's been the same.
You're not going to get tire fall off at a brand new surface. So is it a fair shake? Like, no. Can you go to Loudon and try it there, or Phoenix, and maybe it's different because there's some fall off there? Maybe there's more fall off because of that. I guess we don't know until we go there.
Is there any reason not to take it to Loudon?
Why wouldn't you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, as long as the big thing to me is I'm fine with a tire wearing out. I don't want a tire to pop.
Yeah.
Right? Like what we had at Bristol was great because the tire wore out. You had all the indications in the world that she's done.
Yeah.
And pull her in.
Yeah.
And that's good. It's the ones that pop and you clobber the fence out of nowhere. Like, that's what you don't want.
It's never a good interview.
No, it's never a good interview. It's a black eye on everybody. Yeah. It's bad. But no one's going to complain about a tire going to the cords. Right. The bottom line is Goodyear's doing too good of a job. Like, their tire is great. If you were to put that on your street car and you can hustle your car, not that you should do that on the road, but if you had that tire on your car, you'd be stoked, right? Yeah. You can just run this thing forever. But for a race scenario, we kind of want it back the other way.
Yeah. And I think that when you talk about that repave, they used the aggregate in the asphalt was a little bit bigger. It's kind of, I think it's got potential to be, with a little bit of age, it seems like that's going to be a pretty racy track.
I think so. I mean, it's pretty racy. I know we led all the laps, but it wasn't easy to lead them all. Like, there was times that Denny, especially short run, Denny was faster than us for the first 15 laps. They had to hold him off. And there was opportunities for that to happen. The 20 was faster than us for the first 15 laps as well. Now, after that, our car was great. After 15 laps, then I can kind of manage the pace. But the first 15 were pretty tough. So, and there was opportunities for him to pass, whether that's because we're up top and he can get air on the bottom and it keeps the racing closer. It is the best short track race we've had.
All-Star race, or make it a points race? Because I think that the complexion of that race is totally different if you have all the cars on the racetrack. Like when you have to catch lap cars and you have to start around, because if they're single file around the top, and there's 36 cars on the racetrack, all of a sudden it becomes different. I love the All-Star race. And I think it should move around and do different things with the All-Star race. But I think North Wilkesboro should be a points race. I mean, it's great that we're going to have the All-Star race back there next year. Yeah. But 400 miles and soft tires and all the cars on the track, I think the complexion of that race in the middle of the day is different. Yeah. I think racing in the daytime there is probably going to be better. I agree with you on this, Kevin, because North Wilkesboro's got its own image, right, of what it is. Whether it's an all-star race or a points-paying race,
I don't think the energy changes in that place.
Right.
I mean, it's packed out. The fans love it. They're so excited to be back there. It doesn't have to be like the all-star glitz and glamour, all the, the sparkly stuff. I think it can be a regular points race and everyone would be just excited about being there.
Right.
But that said, I mean, I just like that we're there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where else you'd put the all-star race. Where else would you do it?
Yeah. I think that's a loaded question, right? Like you could combine the Clash and the all-star race and make one overall all-star type exhibition event so we don't have two. But I know sitting up in that booth and watching you, like the race was great, but watching the burnout afterwards, I mean, I felt like I was on a ladder sitting above your car.
That's cool.
Right? The sound and everything that came with that, the crowd's right up underneath you from the booth. It's just such an intimate location with the size of the racetrack, the way that it's built, it's right in the middle of the mountains. I don't know. It just screams old school NASCAR
right?
to me.
That's what I was gonna say. It just screams to like going to like short tracks growing up.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like. It's kind of you're just country roads to get there, right? I mean, yeah, you're right off 421, but like getting to the track off the highway, it's all just back roads to get there. It's not overbuilt or anything like that. It's just a track in the middle of nowhere, just like you grew up racing late models at, right? Like that it's cool. It is, and it has that feel.
And those lights, I feel like I had a new set of eyes when I raced there last year. Have you? I mean,
how bright
imagine if Charlotte had those lights. I just felt. Do you not feel that way?
I mean, you can see really well. It's nice.
See really well. For a night race, I was like, for an old guy at a night race, I'm like,
nice.
We got to have these lights everywhere. Talk to me about your relationship with Paul. We talk on this show all the time about the dynamic of that driver crew chief combination. And you look at guys like yourself that are involved in the car, been around the sport for a long time, but it's still tough if you don't have the right combination from the crew chief engineer standpoint, but more the crew chief. Talk to us about your relationship with Paul and why that changed. I know Todd was kind of in a unique situation, but you went through some situations at Gibbs where that dynamic wasn't right for whatever reason, whether it was young, but still that dynamic could have been right and it could have been successful, and it makes or breaks you, in my opinion. What do you think about your relationship with Paul and that comment?
Yeah, I mean, that relationship is, you're right. It is the nucleus of the team, right? Is a driver and a crew chief have to be on the same page. You have to work together. You have to have the hard conversations on both ways, right? Like I have to be willing to take the hit and him be willing to point it out, which Paul's very willing to point out where I'm off. And I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that as long as we can have that back and forth conversation, right? I call that the dirty work, right? Like it's not the fun part. It's not exciting. Monday mornings aren't always the most fun day of the week after something, but we have to go through it, learn from things, and most importantly, move on after that, right? And be confident and ready for the next race. And each team I've been a part of, the culture has been so different. Whether it's been at Gibbs or, when I was working with Todd Gordon and that team versus, being on Paul Wolfe's team. It's the people and the culture, and they're just different. Better or worse, I can't really say, but just the way they go about things.
Well, this one's better for you.
It's worked out really well. Yeah, Paul's been, he's a racer, man. He wants to win. He is the most competitive person I think I've met. And he does it in a quiet way, so no one really knows it. He's just a quiet guy. He doesn't talk a whole bunch. I got to kind of pull it out of him sometimes.
It's a lot like Rodney, it seems.
They're like, those two are best friends, Yeah. Like
they're cut from the same mold.
They totally are. Yeah. There's no high, there's no low. It's just here, And I'm like, when we win, I'm like, come on, man. Like, get a little more. I get emotional. I get excited.
Just get the smile. That's about it.
Yep. I'm like, we work so hard. You get so pissed off when we don't win. So can you be happy when we do win?
Yeah.
But it's fun to work with him, and his group has been together for a long time, right? When I came over to that team, him and Brad been together for a long time, but his engineers, a lot of the road crew guys, she was fuel guys, been with him for I think 16 years with Paul. So you think about that. I mean, there's a lot of loyalty to him, which shows that he's upfront, he's honest with you, But people respect him, most importantly, for those reasons.
So we talk a lot about the dynamic from the old car to the new car, and we talk about the driver crew chief relationship. Tell me how that has changed for you, and how those guys criticize you, and how you're critiqued with changing your driving style, right?
Yeah.
To a certain degree, understanding that they see everything and now have an opinion of the way that you drive. And
are you teeing me up for something here?
but I think you have to be open to take all that criticism. I tell this to Keelan all the time. I said, look, buddy, like if you're not okay with us criticizing you, you might as well quit now.
Yeah.
Because the driver is now criticized more than he ever has been. And if you're not good with it, you're in big trouble, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wasn't setting you up for anything.
No, I was thinking about how I handle it. It is
How it's different.
It's changed so much, whether it was the next gen car or the old car, as the data has become, and engineering has just become more and more throughout our world, right? Everyone's analyzing every business through data now. You analyze your race car, it's all through data. And the way I grew up racing, it's all from seat of your pants. And to a certain extent, it still is that way, right? You have to be able to do that, but you think about all the simulation tools and all the squiggly lines these guys get to look at all the time. It's important for the driver to, one, yes, take that criticism, but two, help steer the ship on what's real and what's squiggly lines and la la land, right? Like there's a point where we got to be able to do both. And where does simulation become reality? And that connection goes through the driver. And there's times, yeah, and there's times that you sit there and you say, oh, well, it looks like that because of this, and this. And when you're able to point that stuff out and help your team, that's how you can actually grow.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there to help do that, they will go off down a different road, not knowing that can be the wrong way, right? It might look good in the tunnel, or it might look good on sim, but I can't do that on the racetrack because of this, and this. Or you're looking at the wrong lines because that line's not real there anymore. You got to kind of be that connection to reality. But there's also a lot of really good points those engineers bring up of the way you drive the car and what you're doing when you cause and effect, right? So all that is just communicating and being open with each other, and honestly leaving your feelings at the door. And that's not easy to do.
No, it's
right. And it's hard for an experienced driver that's been doing it for a long time. I couldn't imagine what it's like for Keelan, right? Like as a kid, like, and you're trying to have fun at that level too, right? When you're your kid's age, but it's just changed from what it used to be.
Do you ever come back and sit in those rooms and say, the crew chief, the driver, and the engineer might have been at 3 different races? Because I used to come back with this car especially. I would come back and say, okay, where did you get that from? And I don't understand how you watched this race and listened to everything that we said and wrote that down.
Mm-hmm.
And do you come back sometimes and wonder if we were at the same race?
I mean, sometimes, not that often. I'd say my team does a really good job. I'm there a lot. I'm there. The garage opens. I am there. I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss one of these questions come up. There's a lot of times I'm just sitting in the lounge and
Absolutely.
I'll just be going over things, but we're not talking to each other until a question comes up. And it's so many times I think, gosh, if I wasn't there to answer that question, we would have made the wrong decision. And not of anyone's fault besides me just being lazy, right? That would be the only reason why I wouldn't be there. So when I go to the racetrack, I'm going racing. And when I go home, I'm going home. Like, don't bother me when I go home, but I'm going to be 100% when I'm at the track or when I'm at work, at the shop or whatever. That's my time to make sure we have everything right, because everything goes off of results. Everything else that goes on in my work life is off of results. And unfortunately, sometimes in your personal life, right? Because sometimes you take that anger home and you're mad, but it all goes off of results. So you have to put all into that. So
how do you balance all that, right? You have 3 kids, you have a wife. You've been around the sport.
Maybe I should ask you.
For a long time. Yeah. Well, I'm asking because it's, I think it's it's important for some of the young kids that'll listen to this interview and say, oh, well, that's more important than I thought it was, because that circle of life, right, is hard to balance. And you do it well. You were able to go compete. You're great with your family. You have a lot of business outside of what you do. What has that changed at all with the requirements that come with this car, and how do you balance it all?
It's gotten harder. There's more requirements with this car now than there used to be with the old car, just because everything is just closed up, right? The details matter more now than they used to.
Yep.
You used to be able to get away with mediocre rolling times on pit road, or, you had a fast enough car that you can make things happen on restarts. Now everything's like the same. So how are you going to get better than the next guy? You just got to outwork them, right? I mean, everybody's pretty dang talented at this point. The advantage of racing for years in the Cup Series isn't there anymore because that car was so unique. You had an advantage. Now, nope. Everyone's new to this car. Everyone's got the same amount of experience in this car in the last 3 years. So you just got to be willing to outwork them.
Yeah.
I think it's the only way you can do it. That just means you got to cut out the things that aren't important.
Yeah.
And, if you ask me, do I go golfing? No, I don't go golfing. I go racing. I go to work. The things that matter, and then I go home and do the things that matter. Right, and that's just being with my family. Right, I just be with the kids, be a dad, be a good husband. Now I got a fantastic wife that she gets it, and we figure it out, and we do a good job trying to do it. But I mean, you know how it is. Like your wife is the most important decision you ever make in your life is who you marry.
Yes, it is.
And because that person, especially in our way we live, she's raising her kids by herself a lot of times. So when I'm home, it's 100% of the times with them. Don't call me.
Right.
I'm going home. I try to get home around 4 every day. And I don't do that every day, but I try. And when I get home, I'm not answering my phone. Not until, 7 o'clock the next morning.
Right.
When I drop them off at school, okay, I'm back to work. That's just, and you do that every single day, and then you do it at the racetrack. And that's at least the best way I've figured out how to balance it, is just to do 100% at whatever you're doing.
It's a little, everybody has their own nuances, but I find that very much how I did it when I drive. If you don't set those hard lines with the family, it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, and then
try to manage it all.
And then they get frustrated, and I wouldn't blame them. I would be frustrated. It's just they want to hang out with dad, or you got to have a date night, and reconnect with your wife. That stuff's very important. It's really the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, because someday we're gonna stop racing, and I don't know what happens next, but eventually you just it's gonna be what was all that for?
Yeah.
Right? If you retire without a good relationship with your family, you're going to be depressed because all you had was racing. And when that goes away, you got nothing. And that, you can't have that. That's your happiness for the rest of your life.
So you see a lot of these kids coming in a lot like you did, right? They're coming in, 18, 19, 20 years old. Does that shorten that driver span, you think, with the work level the way that it is now? Because of the fact that the load that it puts on you, or is it you think it's still different for different people? Because I feel like you can manage more than most because of your experience and your approach to things.
Yeah.
Stumped you, didn't I?
I've never thought of it that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm 16 years in right now to cup racing. And that's a full career.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, right? I mean, not everyone races as long as you did, Kevin. How many years did you race for?
Yeah, 23 in the Cup
23.
Series.
God bless. I hear that and I'm like, I don't know.
But it becomes this balance, right? Because the next thing you do, you got to go through, okay, well, how long do I think I'm going to live? And how many, what's the number that I want to live off of? And then you have this whole retirement thing that you have to,
start thinking about.
Have to figure out. And it's not a lot of people want to do it in a 1 or 2 year process. That's an every year, 5-year plan, constant process.
Right. And I want to say if I can't win, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I like winning more than I like racing. The racing part's okay, but the winning part's the only reason why I do it. I can find joy in doing other things besides running mid-pack in a cup race.
Yeah.
Just if that's what I got to do and I'm holding back my race team, I'm out.
Yeah.
because I just don't want to do that. I can find joy, like I said, doing other things. I can find ways to win in business or in other stuff that I can get that competitive vibe. But eventually, if you keep getting your butt kicked every week, you're gonna be like, screw this. I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah, especially when you've done it for as long as you have.
Exactly.
So what is the path? Like if you said, okay, I raced Bandoleros, legend cars, late models, is that the right path? If you had to do it again through your path, knowing what Cup is now, what would you change? Like, tell us your path, and then tell us what.
My path. So I started in quarter midgets in Connecticut, and then I moved down to Atlanta, ran Bandoleros, Legends cars, late models, and then the ASA, Hooters Pro Cup, kind of those things, and then eventually got a riding with Gibbs. My path was a little different than at the time, but now every kid's doing it, right? Like I was the youngest to drive a late model. I was the youngest to do, like I was driving a Legends car at 9. Nobody was driving Legends cars at 9, right? I had to lie about my age to do it, like now you can race at that age. And so all the things that I did that was so crazy because I was so young is now the norm. Kids are racing late models at 12, 13 years old now. And it's not even like, there's a few of them doing it. It's not like there's just one kid doing that. I was the one kid doing all this stuff, waiting on my birthday to move up to the next level. And the thing that my dad did really good at was always moving me up before I felt like I was ready, right? Like I never stayed in a division long enough to where I dominated. It was always like, okay, you figured it out, move up. Like as soon as we start winning, it was always do that. And I think a lot of this, you're only as good as the competition you're competing against. So I think that was a key piece to it. But we always had fun doing it. I think that was the most important part to all of it was that, we didn't, my dad wasn't a racer. He didn't know what the heck he was doing. But we just would go and figure it out. And it's different today because we owned our car. We worked on our car. We didn't have to compete against these teams. Right now, you look at Legends car racing, go-karts. Paul Wolfe's kid races go-karts. You hear about some of the stuff. Keelan, same thing. They're all part of teams where like all this, data is collected and they help, to show up to the racetrack and go drive the car. And then afterwards they go home. And I'm used to like showing up with our trailer and we unload everything. And if we wrecked it, well, we go back and we fix it. It's just, that's what we were used to. Everybody did that way. There wasn't another option. But now it doesn't seem like you can be competitive doing it that way. So racing's just changed from a kids type racing.
It's your path now. That's what it is now.
It's my path, but on teams instead of doing it just
on your own.
Yeah. I don't know what I would change. I think everyone's done it in different ways. Like you usually do it the way you did it as a kid, right? You raced go-karts growing up. What's the first thing you do, right? I put my kid in a quarter midget last year, because that's where I started. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I think just seat time. You look at Kyle Larson, that's probably the best one to look at. He just drives everything.
Yeah.
What's it matter? Just drive it. I guess that's what it is.
Well, I've got 2 more questions for you. One, what was the first car you owned? And where is it? Where did it go? Did you crash it, sell it?
No, still got it. Still got it. Yeah, still got it. I bought the first car I bought was a 37 GMC truck. It's a rat rod.
The first car?
It was the first one I bought, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I just drove my dad's stuff around.
Gotcha. Way cheaper. Way easier.
And I signed with Gibbs and I started getting paid a little bit. And I was like, man, I want a hot rod. I'm a car guy. So, and I always thought rat rods were really cool, especially when I was 16, 17. And so that was the first car I bought.
We have not had rat rod for our first car. I know that for sure. But that is unique. Tell us about your foundation and your event and how the fans can get involved and what they can do to help.
Absolutely. So, that's the why, right? And when you think about the platform that God's given me to drive race cars and to speak to so many people, if you just did it to drive race cars your whole life and doing nothing else, it's kind of pointless when you think about it. you're not really affecting many people's lives. But if you take that platform and do something bigger with it, that's like the true motivation behind it all. So we started a Joey Logano Foundation to help give children, young adults in times of crisis a second chance. And where we've really landed on is foster kids. And a lot of times it's a first chance for them because these kids get born into the worst situation. And it's not their fault. And they get put into a system. And there's a lot of great organizations that we deal with that give these, not only the kids, but the foster families, the parents, gives them the tools and the resources they need to help them become a contributing member of society. That's the goal, right? How do you break the mold? And it's a long road. It's slow moving, right? Raising kids doesn't happen quickly. But if you can impact them in a positive way, that's what it's all about. So we actually have our fundraiser event, May 23rd, coming up this Thursday. So that's going to be at Coyote Joe's. We're going to do our country music concert for the second time. It's a lot of fun. We got Walker Hayes there, Tracy Lawrence. The frontmen will be there. So it's going to be a good time. So if you want to go, coyote-joes.com. We still got some tickets available, but it was a blast last year. It did great, raised a ton of money. So if we can have fun and change people's lives, who's better than us, right?
That is what it's all about. And we, like you say, we've been gifted this ability to have this platform to do things like that. My mom's had a foster child for 25 years. So I've watched that whole process and understand a little bit about the process that goes along with that whole process. So
your mom's pretty awesome, then.
You're a special guy, Joey Logano. I've enjoyed getting to know you better, and
we've had a good time here recently, haven't we?
Through all the good and the bad, we've become good friends and worked a lot with things inside of the sport. So good luck. Thanks for coming by today.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking around the sport and helping us out.
No problem. I enjoy it. I want to thank Joey Logano for coming in this week and doing the interview in the studio. That was quite an honor to have him in the studio. But just want to remind all you closers out there to subscribe on YouTube and anywhere else that you follow us to get our podcast. And we'll see you next week on Happy Hour.